A very good morning. In today's session, we'll be covering the place of supply. So, the importance of place of supply emanates from determining the nature of supply. See, for instance, when a person is trying to determine what the nature of supply is, he'll have to understand what is the location of the supplier and what is the place of the supply. If the location of the supplier and place of supply is in the same state or same union territory, then it becomes an intra-state supply. When the location of the supplier and place of supply are in two different states or two different union territories or one state and one union territory, it becomes an interstate supply. So one of the important factor to determine the intra-state whether it is an intra-state supply or an interstate supply, we need to know what is the place of supply. So, what is the impact of determining the place of supply wrongly is you will charge the wrong tax. If in case it is actually IGST, you would have charged CGST or SGST, and that would be carried over even in your returns. Your return would show a wrong disclosure of the wrong taxes, and the penal provisions of wrongly disclosing the amount in the acts will arise. There will be no interest liability if you have paid the taxes but you have paid it under the wrong date. You will not have any interest liability, but penal provisions of wrong disclosures will arise. Now, if you see the place of supply is being covered under four sections under the IGST Act. We have two sections for goods and two sections for services. In case of goods, supply of goods other than goods imported into or exported from India. That is, in case of local procurements or local supplies, what would be the place of supply is being determined under Section 10 of IGST Act. What will be the place of supply in case of supply of goods imported into or exported from India when there is a transaction outside India? It can be either imports or it can be exports. What would be the place of supply is being determined under Section 11 of IGST Act. So, as you're all aware, GST is a combination of is a tax on goods as well as services. We have the provisions separately for goods and services. Since this cannot be a combined section, this place of supply cannot be a combined section for both goods and services. We have a separate section for goods as well as services. In case of services, we have section 12 when the location of the supplier and the location of the recipient is in India. When both of them are in India, then what is the place of supply in case of services? When either of them are outside India, even if one person is outside India, then what would be the place of supply is being determined under section 13 of IGST Act. Now we'll try and understand how section 10 works. So section 10 talks about the place of supply provisions when the goods are locally procured or locally supplied. So section 10 discusses five scenarios. So number one, where supply involves movement of goods. When the supply involves movement of goods, what would be the place of supply? Number two, bill to ship to transaction. In case of bill to ship to transaction, I mean it is known as bill to ship to transaction. But it is not the terminology that is being deployed in the Act. It is just commonly known as bill to ship to transaction. I'll try and explain what is bill to ship to soon. Number three, where the supply does not involve movement of goods. What would be the place of supply? And number four, when goods are installed or assembled at site. Number five, when goods are supplied on board. On board a conveyance which can be a vessel or an aircraft, which can be a vessel or an aircraft or a train or a motor vehicle. So these are the 5 scenarios that are being discussed under section 10. Now we'll see one by one what is the place of supply for each of the provisions. So number 1 talks about supply involving movement of the goods. So when there is an agreement between the supplier and the recipient that the supply will be complete only when the goods are moved from one location to another location, all those transactions fall under 10(1)(a). So the place of supply in these transactions would be the location where the goods terminates for delivery to the recipient. Location of the goods where the goods terminate for delivery to the recipient would be the place of supply in all transactions falling under section 10(1)(a). So here the movement need not necessarily be caused by the supplier. It can be caused either by the supplier or the recipient or by any other person. It need not be necessarily the supplier. So the movement can be caused by anyone. So we generally, in case of goods, since they are physically moved, it is easier for us to understand where the goods actually lie at the time when the goods are terminating for delivery to the recipient. So what is termination of delivery to the recipient varies from transaction to transaction. It is based on the agreement between the supplier and the recipient. So there can be an agreement between one supplier and a recipient that the goods will be deemed to be supplied at the factory gate. We all know the Ex-Works contract, right? In case of Ex-Works contract, the goods, the responsibility, the risks and responsibility of the goods terminates at the supplier's factory gate. Suppose that it is only the responsibility of the recipient to take the goods safely to his factory. So in that case, the goods terminates for delivery at the factory gate, outside the factory gate. Immediately after that, there is no risk that is being vested on the supplier. Whereas in case of transactions where delivery at premises is being mandated, I mean delivery at customer premises is being mandated, the goods will have to be moved physically to the customer's premises. It is only at that point the goods terminates for delivery to the recipient. There can also be scenarios where there is an agreement between the supplier and the recipient that the goods will terminate for delivery at a place which is not either the supplier's location or the recipient's location. It can terminate at a place at a third party's office also, or in some common location that is being agreed between the supplier and the recipient. So it is all based on the agreement. So sum and substance of 10(1)(a) is that the place of supply for all transactions for all supplies involving movement of goods is the location of the goods where the goods are terminating for delivery to the recipient. So we look into the next transaction which is being provided in 10(1)(b). So here, goods delivered by the supplier to the recipient or any other person on the direction of the third person. So when the goods are being delivered by the supplier to a recipient on a third person's order. So the person who is delivering the goods has received the order not from the person to whom the goods are being delivered, but from the third person. The person who is placing the order need not necessarily receive the goods. It can be received by the person to whom the direction has been, on whom the direction has been given by the third person. So the recipient should receive the goods here. So here in our example, C should receive the goods based on the order that is being placed by A. So the place of business in this case is assumed, it is deemed to be the principal place of the business of A. It is deemed to be the principal place of business of the third person. A is the third person according to the section 10(1)(b). Now, the Act uses the term principal place of business. It is not using the term place of business of the third person. It is using principal place of business of third person. So, if you refer to the definition of principal place of business, which is being defined under 2 subsection 89 of CGST Act, it says principal place of business means the place of business specified as a principal place of business in the certificate of registration. So only when there is a certificate of registration can there be a principal place of business. So it is necessary for a transaction that is being covered under 10(1)(b that the third person should necessarily be a registered person. If the person who is placing the order is not a registered person, then bill to ship to transaction will not arise at all. It will not fall under 10(1)(b. It will be covered under 10(1)(a) or any other relevant subsections. It will not be covered under 10(1)(b). So this principal place of business needs to be given its due importance. Next, we would be looking into 10(1)(c). So under this subsection, we would be looking into transactions where the supply does not involve movement of the goods. So initially, when we saw 10(1)(a), we saw what is the place of supply for transactions where supply necessitates movement of the goods. Second, we saw bill to ship to transactions. Now third, we are seeing transactions where the supply does not require any movement of the goods. The goods will be treated as being supplied on an as is where is basis. So for instance, there is a sale of a factory. With it there is a DG set. So there is a pre-installed DG set. There are two different transactions. It is not being sold as a slump sale. So there are two different transactions. So when the factory is being sold, at the same time, the DG set would also be deemed to have been sold. And there is no requirement of you to remove the fittings and again put it at a different place. It is being treated as being delivered on an as is where is basis. Similarly, there is another example. There is a huge asset that is lying at the supplier's factory. On the goods, on there is an advertisement that is being posted by the supplier that the asset is being available for sale on an as is where is basis. So it is up to the recipient to come and remove the assets. It is the dismantle the assets and then assemble it at his own site. So it is being supplied on an as is where is basis. So what is the place of supply in such transactions is what is being provided in 10(1)(c). So the place of supply is treated as the location of such goods at the time of delivery to the recipient. So the time when the delivery is getting completed, the time when the delivery is being made, at that point in time where the goods are located, that would be the place of supply. The last subsection covers the goods being supplied on board a conveyance. So when we read this transaction, two limbs of the transaction occurs to our mind. One is the goods being supplied to the operator of the conveyance, and the other is the goods being supplied by the operator of the conveyance to the passenger. So this clause covers the second limb of the transaction. The goods supplied by the operator to the passenger is being covered under 10(1)(e). All transactions falling under the first limb of the transaction, that is the goods being supplied to the operator of the conveyance, is covered under the other provisions. It will not be covered under this subsection. So here, conveyance includes all modes of transportation, that is by sea, air or by road. So it can be a vessel or an aircraft or a train or a motor vehicle. So the place of supply for goods that are being supplied on board a conveyance is the location at which the goods are taken on board. So when you read this transaction plainly, the example that comes to our mind is the food being supplied on an aircraft. But food being supplied on an aircraft is not covered under this provision for the reason being it is treated as a composite supply and it is being clubbed as a ancillary service to the passenger transportation service. So it is generally not covered. But if you read the notification notification that has notified the rate for services, the food supplied food supplied in the aircraft is taxed at 5% at the rate at which the restaurant services is taxed. It is not taxed at the rate at which the air travel is being taxed. So we are awaiting clarity on those provisions. But other items that are being supplied on board a conveyance, for instance, if there are some gift items that are being supplied while boarding an aircraft, or if there is a sunglass that is being gifted while boarding a vessel, all these are being covered. So the location at which the goods are boarded, taken on board, will be treated as a place of supply. So now, when the place of supply provisions are not capable of being determined under any of these five clauses, if it does not fall under any of these five categories, then the central government has the power to notify the place of supply for those transactions. That is the second subsection of section 10, which is the residuary provision. But it needs to be taken care that the residuary provision can be resorted to only when the transactions does not fall under any of these five categories. So now that we have completed section 10, we'll move on to section 11. Section 11 talks about place of supply of goods imported into or exported from India. So when the goods are imported into India, the place of supply shall be the location of the importer. And when the goods are exported from India, the place of supply shall be the location outside India. So now, when we are trying to understand the meaning of export and import, it is being defined in IGST Act. Section 2(5) talks about export of goods. Export of goods is being defined as taking goods out of India to a place outside India. The goods should physically be removed from India, should be removed from a place from India to a place outside India. Section 2, subsection 10 talks about import of goods. Import of goods means bringing goods into India from a place outside India. So there should be a physical movement of the goods from a place outside India to India. Only when the goods are physically moved from outside India to India, it shall be treated as an import, and from India to outside India, it will be treated as an export. So if you see the definitions has both the definition of import and export. They do not have any mention about the location of the supplier or the location of the recipient. They are only talking about the physical movement of the goods. And also, if you see the services, export of services, to qualify as an export of service under GST, there should be a payment in the convertible foreign exchange. That is not a criterion in case of goods. So, payment in convertible foreign exchange is not a it's not a criterion for export of goods. It's only a condition for export of services. One another important aspect that needs to be considered in case of all import and export transactions is specific to bill to ship to transactions. So in case of bill to ship to transactions, if you remember section 10, we saw the place of business, the place of supply would be the place of the principal place of business of the third person. That is, the person who is placing the order. The person to whom the bill is being made will be treated as the principal place of business of that third person will be treated as a place of business. But now, when it comes to import or export, the person to whom the goods are shipped to will gain prominence.
So if the goods are being shipped to a place outside India, only then it will amount to an export. When it is being, even in case of import transaction, only when the goods are imported into, it is being shipped to the place inside India, it will be treated as an import transaction. So bill to ship, in all bill to ship to transactions, shipped, the place where the goods are shipped to gains prominence in case of section 11. So that brings us to the end of the place of supply provisions for goods. Thank you.